Roy, you were in Beijing and you got an interview with Chiang Kai-shek.
Yes,
So-
I did, but
so
before
this-
that,
this-
when I went to New York after meeting the Shanghai Bureau Chief, I found out that we're just in the process of firing their life correspondent in China because he was sitting in the Broadway mansions in Shanghai all the time where the correspondents were, and not getting out in the countryside. So they told me if I would go right back to China the next week, I was hired. And I never filled out an application for work there. I just had one or two interviews. Anyway, going back, when I got back to Shanghai, I found myself teamed up with a photographer named Jack Burns. And we had all of China to cover. We had no limits. And what we used to do was, there was no long distance telephone. There's no way, except you maybe could call from Shanghai, you could call Nanking maybe, but trying to call for anything more distant was like trying to telephone to Mars. So what we did was we'd go out, we were based in Shanghai, we'd go out about 4 o'clock in the morning to Longhua Airport, where there were the Chenault's Flying Tigers running a commercial airline with a contract to Chiang Kai-shek, and flying supplies, arms, ammunition, food, money to pay the troops all over China. So we figured this is a great way. We got a hitch ride with these guys. They were really very colorful lot. One of the most famous was a pilot named Earthquake Magoon, who had his pilot's uniform was a T-shirt expanded greatly by his beer belly and cowboy boots, and the other pilots too. A lot of them were real characters. All of them had been aces at flying the Flying Tigers during the World War II. But anyway, there were about 15 of these guys flying all over China every day, and there were never any airports to land in. They were dirt roads. They were widened and made into landing strips. It's very interesting flying with these guys because they always had a Chinese co-pilot, and when they would take off or land, they would tell the co-pilot, assume the position, and that meant put your hands up so you couldn't throw any switches on the dashboard. Anyway, we fly all over with these guys, landing in crazy places where we had no idea what was going on, and when you landed, you had to just jump out of the plane right away and get yourself in a pillbox, or the national pillbox, or behind the wall. All these cities had walls at that time. And anyway, to come back to
Chiang Kai-shek in Peking, and then you're going up to Mukden.
Yeah, so Henry Luce arranged an interview with Chiang Kai-shek for us, for Jack Burns, a photographer, and me. And we went up to Beijing and saw him, and I noted in my notebook that he seemed like a sparrow. He was jumping around. He was nervous. It was like his wife was doing the translating in her best Wellesley English, but he seemed very nervous, and he kept telling us things that he'd already said many times, like the communists are a cancer, the Japanese were just a terrible skin condition, and he had. It was really an unsatisfactory interview. He kept saying, well, the war with the communists is just an extension of World War II, things like really. But so anyway, he finally brought in a couple of his generals, including Fu Yi, who later would negotiate with the communists and turned Beijing over peacefully to the communists, so all the relics wouldn't be destroyed. He later became the forest minister for the communists. Anyway, the big point that Chiang Kai-shek made, if he made any, was that Mukden and Manchuria was safely in his hands, that he had 250,000 troops up there, and they were going to defend Manchuria to the end. Well, so we decided, Jack and I decided to hitch a ride up to Mukden a couple of days later, and when we got there, there was the nationalists in full retreat. They were abandoning all their weapons, heavy weapons, 250 millimeter howitzers by the road, all looking for any way to get out of Manchuria. They jump on trains. I have one copy of the magazine there with a retreat from Mukden.
Right out in the right.
You can see
right back there, right?
Yeah, the fleeing soldiers get on a train, get in even the engine, climb all over, any way to get out, down to Yingko, the port where this was going to be Chiang Kai-shek's kind of Dunkirk, a local Dunkirk. Anyway, we took a little stroll up the road north of Mukden, found all these soldiers fleeing. So we went back to the city and went to see the American Consul General, Angus Ward, and found him barricaded in behind a year's worth of food, flour, canned goods. He'd been ordered to, he was like a huge man with a white goatee, looked like Sidney Greenstreet, you know, remember. And he spoke fluent Chinese and fluent Russian. And so the U.S. State Department had told him to stay put in Mukden and try and make contact with the communists. And it had been, by that time, it had been 2 years since George Marshall, as the top explained, tried to mediate the war, or at least establish a coalition government. So anyway, we took a lot of pictures quickly, and Angus Ward, the Consul General, very undiplomatically said to us, "You better get your asses out the airport." So we did. Flew to Tientsin and back to Shanghai. Then there we had all this film of the collapse of Manchuria, and it was Saturday morning in Shanghai. Life used to go to press at Saturday night. So we took a chance, got the film on Pan Am plane. This is contrast to today where you got live coverage of everything. Put the film on a plane, Pan Am plane to San Francisco, 40-hour trip minus 13 hours crossing the international date line. Life set up a portable film processing outfit in the San Francisco airport. Got a courier to carry the wet negatives to Chicago, where the main printing plant was. Chicago was locked in. The plane went to Cleveland. They had to hire a seat of the pants pilot to go and fly into Chicago with the fog. And then the editor came out to Chicago, edited the film in a taxi cab, and went to press a day late, but it was wonderful. We got a great scoop. There had been no other American correspondent there.
So Roy, did you think Chiang Kai-shek just didn't know what was happening in Manchuria, or did he lie to you?
He lied to us. He was pretty good at that. And you know, and the madam who was translated, you could tell she was kind of smoothing out everything he said, and you know, making it sound pretty good. He was terribly nervous. One thing I put in my notebook was he probably was telling the madam, "Who the hell let these guys in?" You know.